Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hello and welcome to Empire Builders. There's a lot of people that have got a passion for property, but they're stuck in a boring job and they're looking to escape. So on today's show, I thought we'd take a look at some options for getting a guaranteed salary and still being involved in the property industry. So today I'm joined by Charles Tarbey, Chairman and owner of Century 21 Australasia. Now Charles, we've obviously got a global audience here, and Century 21 is probably, or as far as I know, one of the biggest real estate chains around the world. So how far reaching is it?
Yeah, I guess that, and that's a debatable question or argument with regards to which brand is the biggest, but it certainly is the most recognised real estate brand around the world. It started in the US in 1971 as a challenge against some larger independent agents that were taking on the marketplace. It progressively expanded. I had a chance to talk to them in 1984. They didn't want to come to Australia, just gone to Japan. 1986, I missed the opportunity, and then I had another chance again in 1993 and eventually executed an acquisition of the company. It's in now 83 different countries around the world. You can't go anywhere in Paris, France, without seeing a gold jacket or a C21 office, or Japan or Canada, and lots of Europe now. And we meet, the most important part of this business is that all of these regions meet every 6 months. We are connected to a global website that we've put together so that any property that lists for sale in Australia is an automated process that's sitting on a website where somebody in China can see it in their own language, in their own currency, and in their own land dimensions, if you like, in real time. And so those sort of aspects of business make it a really, truly global company. And our get-togethers, which one is just coming up shortly in Madrid, allow us to communicate about real estate on a global basis and see the differences in the way in which we operate or can operate.
Because a lot of people are buying property all around the world, and whether you're in the Australia or the UK or anywhere in Europe, then people are talking about that all the time.
Yes.
So just with your branches, so how many countries do you look after and how many offices?
Yeah, I've got what's called Australasia, and it really just encompasses the lower part of Asia down in through to New Guinea, all the way down in through to New Zealand. There are over 300 offices sitting in that platform there now. It's probably only small compared to Japan that has 900 offices, or China that has 1,700. But I guess when you look at our population base, it's not a bad size to operate, and still plenty of room for growth.
Sounds good. Now, the main conversation today is there's a lot of people, I get a lot of people that want to escape from work. They love property and they think, right, I'm going to become a real estate agent because then I can do a bit of everything. And I know when I gave up work as an accountant, my accountant told me to go and do a real estate course and look at all the different jobs. So that's what I thought we'd kind of cover today. So the job as a real estate agent, what is the real job? Is it about property or is it about kind of making phone calls?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's about people, because if you don't have your relationships, and the key we see it as in terms of talking to our people out there in the field, if you build a relationship, conditions become negotiable. You can discuss all kinds of things when you have a relationship with somebody. So you might have a property for sale, whether it be commercial or residential, a buyer wants to buy, but you've got to get that property for sale to start with. And to do that, you've got to have your network out there, you've got to have your relationships, you've got to have people who believe that you can do the job for them. You may not necessarily be the smartest real estate agent with the most amount of knowledge, but if you're able to find your way around to the areas where knowledge is accessible and the people that you're dealing with enjoy dealing with you, then that relationship aspect of it is a critical part of the overall transaction.
Because it's really hard at the start. It's like chicken and egg. You need a real estate listing to show how good you are, but it's very hard to get people to trust you to give you that initial listing because you've got no track record.
Yeah, look, it changes. It does change in the marketplace. Currently we're in this country, in Australia, and not in all countries around the world. We're in a situation where it's about finding property to sell, whereas in 90% of the time in real estate, you're finding buyers to buy property. So your relationship move changes. There are moments in real estate where you just don't want any more property for sale because you can't deal with the emotions and the situations or the negative consequences of a down market. And so you gravitate across and you're really working your relationship with buyers. So it does change. It's a very interesting industry overall.
But look, recruitment was the same. So either you've got lots of jobs and you've got no candidates, but you've got lots of candidates and no
Yes,
jobs.
exactly.
And real estate is exactly the same thing.
What I love about real estate and what people really need to see about real estate and understand about real estate is that you don't have to go out there and invest $500,000 in and stock up your shop with items that you have to sell that sit there and do nothing. Your stock is other people's property. And what you have to do is create an environment where you employ people, build a team, employ an ongoing training platform for these people, keep them motivated, and that means that most of your costs are salary-driven costs. So you're not outlaying the significant amounts. It's one of the only industries I know where you can actually build a substantial business with a very, very small outlay. And it's one of the only industries that I know where you sell something to an average person, an average property, for an average amount of time, and they make money. Whereas most other industries, you sell something to somebody and they lose money the moment they walk out the door with it. And that's the part about the industry I like. It's not that hard to get into, and you're providing a level of service that actually increases people's potential to gain wealth.
And that's where real estate agents can be paid very high salaries, because what's a typical fee? Because most of the time, wherever you are around the world, your average transaction is probably $500,000 or $1 million, isn't it? In whatever currency. What is typically the charges that real estate agents charge?
It is incredibly scary. Anybody listening to this who's in who are in the US are going to go, you've got to be kidding. In Australia, real estate agents are charging, particularly in this tough market, just to get listings in upmarket areas, 1%. Now, if you can get 3% in this country, you're probably out in the middle of nowhere where the property's going to be hard to sell. Whereas in the US, they'll go to 5-6% commission. And that's why in the US, you'll see a lot of for sale by owners. Whereas in Australia, if you open up the newspaper, you will hardly see anybody selling privately. There are plenty of private sale websites that have been popping up around Australia, but they really don't have any significance. So it's a juggling act. So our commissions are lower, but we get the transaction.
So normal fees are around 2%, isn't it? Whereas the US, I think it's 6%,
Yes.
but 3% goes to the agent that's got the buyer, and 3%
yes.
goes to the seller, and they can actually get both the fees. So if you've got the buyer and the seller, you get 6%.
That's correct. And in Australia, that was the same as you do a conjunction, what we'd call a conjunction, a 50-50 with another agent. You might have the buyer and they might have the seller, and you'd work together. And you'd still do that on 3%. In fact, going back, our fees were regulated. In some parts of Australia, they're still regulated and about to be deregulated. So there was a fee that would probably be equivalent to only about 2.5% sitting in this country for a very long time anyway.
But saying that, the top agents in the country, they're earning $1 million plus, aren't they? They're getting pretty good salaries.
The good agents are doing incredibly well, but you always hear those stories, and you know they're only in the minority when you look at the number of people in the industry. And they're generally in areas where I don't think, for example, real estate agents, they talk about selling property. I've sold this, I've sold that. No real estate agent in most parts of the capital cities in Australia have sold any real estate in the last 3 years. The market has sold it. And so they're doing really, really well because the market's been great. Now, I want to see what they look like in 6 months or 12 months' time. That's the interesting time. Because we always say that there are only two types of markets. One where you get the buyer up to meet the vendor's ridiculously high price. That's called a boom. The other where you get the vendor down to meet the purchaser's ridiculously low offer. That's called real estate. And that's what we're in 90% of the time. And that's where we're heading again.
And I guess, is there a typical kind of person that you say, look, they're going to be brilliant at real estate, or no, this person, don't bother, you've got no hope?
Oh, absolutely. And some people will surprise you. The number one salesperson, or up in the top of the tree in the Century 21 system, that people recognise was a chap that walked around with a gold jacket on, probably still does. I think he doesn't have a comb over. I think it's more than that.
So he's not Donald Trump.
He's not Donald Trump. And he walks around with a sold sign around his neck. I mean, it's an odd looking thing. When you see some of the award winners at some of our awards, you think you're expecting something else. I think it's about the person's attitude towards other people, which is a critical thing. And if they've got that right approach to people, they make a promise and they follow through with that promise, they're going to get business. They're going to get business. And it can be anybody from any industry that has that approach to it. If you get somebody that has that approach and also has an analytical part to them where they can structure things, they are very powerful. So if they've got a combination of the two, they've got emotional intelligence and intellectual intelligence, they're going to be very powerful in the real estate industry.
And look, one of the most successful people that I know in real estate is he's selling $10, $20, $30 million homes, and again to a lot of foreign buyers, but he's the most down-to-earth person. He's not the flash real estate agent. He's not driving a BMW or Mercedes. He's just really kind of quiet and well-spoken, but he just kind of listens to people.
It's lovely of you to talk about me that way, Chris. I appreciate it.
There was someone else as well.
I do know.
I know you're very good as well, Charles.
I do know who you're referring to, and I agree with you. Yes.
Yep. Let's talk quickly about the commission structure. Does it roughly work that, say, if you sell $1 million property, 2% fee, and that's 20,000, roughly half might go to the agency, and maybe half might go to the salesperson? So it might be 10,000 as a rough idea.
Probably, but the cost involved in the transaction is quite significant. A lot of people don't know that the Australian real estate landscape is very different to most of the landscapes around the world. We are a business format in Australia. You don't employ 100 sales associates on commissions that might drive taxis part-time. These are people who are salary driven. It's legislated in Australia, and you need to be paid a salary. And when you're paid a salary plus commission, you've got to earn a certain amount. So as a principal, I'm outlaying a certain amount before I get anything from you. And if I make a mistake in recruiting you, then I can't get that money back from you. I can only get it from you when you're actually generating commissions. So it's important to note that the Australian landscape is very, very different to that around the rest of the world before you...
So you really need to check your own country
to
see how
it's
set up.
You do need to check it.
And then very quickly, what are your...
I don't think I answered your question, but look, doesn't matter.
That's a rough idea anyway. Very quickly, if people want to get into real estate and selling, what are maybe some couple of tips to try and get them started?
I would always suggest to people that get out to open for inspections. A lot of people think it's the other way around, that a real estate agent should build a relationship with you. If you want something done in real estate, if you want to be a buyer in real estate, and you want agents to give you a property for sale, you take them for a cup of coffee every week. You keep on their case like you would do as a buyer's agent. You've got to be in their face and build that relationship. If you want to get into real estate, you need to go to the open for inspections, meet some of the top salespeople, watch what they do, see if they can introduce you, go and visit real estate practitioners, go to any of the careers nights that they have. Everything there is available. A lot of people start by going to a course and then hoping when I get through the course I might get a job. I can assure you that is one way, and you will have to do a course in this country to get there. But the reality is, if you can get out face to face, belly to belly, contact to contact, voice to voice with a real estate practitioner or other real estate agents, you've got a fighting chance of getting into the industry a lot quicker than most people.
Sounds good. So I hope that's given you a bit of an insight into starting off as a real estate agent. And look, it's definitely not an employee type of job. You've definitely got to be out there. You've got to be able to go and talk to people. You've got to do a bit of hustling and the rest of it. But that's a quick insight. Anyway, we'll be back soon. Welcome back to the show. Today I'm joined by Charles Tarbey, Chairman and Owner of Century 21 Australasia. Welcome back to...
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.